Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the marketing coordinator at Hoffman Nursery, and today I am here with Bill Hall, who is our head grower, and we're to talk a little bit about sedges today. So, Bill, what is a sedge?
All right, let's start out with what is a sedge. Sedges or Carexes are grass-like plants that can sometimes be difficult to differentiate from grasses. One of the rules of thumb is sedges have edges. You see this triangular growth habit at the base with sedges. Other than that, they're a very sturdy, uh, dependable plant and very good candidates for the garden.
So, we grow over 35 different species here, right? You have everything from tall sedges to short, broad foliage, fine foliage. So really, there's kind of a sedge for every occasion, right?
You're exactly right. It's a diverse genus. We have the native sedges that are the workhorses of the green infrastructure programs. And then you have a lot of sedges that are ornamental in nature, like these Amarillo that we are sitting in. This is the neon yellow. It'll really brighten up a shady part of your garden, just like it's brightening up this shady greenhouse. So they do run the gamut, and you'll probably find a Carex that's going to suit almost any of your needs.
And we do have the Carex chart in the catalog and online that kind of helps narrow down options for folks too. And we kind of categorize stuff by characteristics and habits and height and that sort of thing. So that might help folks pick what sedge would work best for them. Right?
Very good. It's a good reference tool for you. Those sedge comparison charts.
So a few years ago, we came up with the tagline, "Sedges make sense." Why do you think sedges make sense for a garden program, but also in the landscape?
As I said before, sedges are a tough, adaptable plant. Once established, they tend to not to be very fussy. They're not very prone to disease or insect problems. I'll occasionally have an issue with aphids or spider mites here in the greenhouses, but in the landscape, they tend to be very clean.
So, what's your favorite sedge? You have a favorite?
It's changed over the years. The one that I like the best after growing it for these many years is the Laxicomis Bunny Blue that was brought to us by a friend of mine, Bob Head. It's a beautiful, tough plant, and it tends to look good throughout the growing season. How about you?
I would say my favorite was probably Carex plantagenea. I really like the
Seersucker.
seersucker. Yeah, I like the foliage on that with that seersucker texture. I think it's beautiful. I also love the Evercolor series, the Everillo here, but one of my favorites in that series is Evertree. I like the foliage on there.
Good.
Yeah.
Good choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot to choose from.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's talk growing. What are some growing tips that you would recommend for someone growing sedges?
Okay. First of all, it's a cool season plant, so timing is critical for us as far as production goes. We tend to start propagating those August and November into heated space. We try to use a very light porous media because we want to encourage them to root. Once they're established, we try to back off on the water, not too much water. Once they're established, though, they tend to be pretty tough and dependable and not very problematic.
Yeah. And sedges can be a little slower to start than grasses, right? So kind of giving them the time to finish is important.
That's exactly right. And once again, a part of that is the fact that they're cool and we're doing it in an off season. So yeah, it takes a little bit of patience to get them established, but once established, they're more or less bulletproof.
And maintenance. If you're in the greenhouses, but also in the landscape, in terms of maintenance and cutting back, what do you recommend?
Well, here in the greenhouses, once they grow, we do an occasional cut with a mower just to keep them in bounds because they do tend to kind of cascade outward and they can crowd one another. Now, in the landscape, they're not very fussy in that regard. Probably a yearly pruning after they flower would be enough to just kind of take the old growth off and refresh it. And it would probably put you in good stead and give you a good display through the year.
Awesome. So really, at the end of the day, there's really a sedge for all occasions. Really a problem solver in the landscape. Use it as a ground cover. Use it as a lawn alternative as well. It's great for bioswales. You can also use it on slopes for erosion control.
Right.
It's great for container plantings. Any other thoughts on using it in the landscape?
Like I said, I mean, it is a workhorse of the green infrastructure, particularly those native sedges, but they kind of run the gamut, and you could find a spot for almost anything.
Yeah, and they are great supportive plants in pollinator gardens and also in meadows and prairies. You can use it. They provide cover for wildlife.
Most certainly, and a lot of those sedges, they kind of use them as the base layer on those plantings.
Yeah. So really, it's sedge is quite the asset to program towards the landscape. You agree?
Exactly right. And sedges make sense.
That's right. Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you for joining us today.